Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into something completely fascinating about how we communicate. Think about it. How do we construct sentences to talk about the literal fate of the world compared to, say, the sheer everyday annoyance of dealing with a spam caller? It's a pretty wild journey from the massive macro level down to the micro, and it's all guided by the hidden mechanics of language. Let's get into it. So, what do saving the Earth and hanging up on a spam caller actually have in common? I know, it sounds like a totally bizarre question, right? Like, what could a global crisis possibly share with some pushy telemarketer interrupting your dinner? Well, the answer lies in our grammar. It turns out the way we report on both of these vastly different situations to our friends, our family, or the public, it utilizes the exact same conversational mechanics. Today, we're going to see exactly how this works in practice.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First up, defining global issues. Then we'll look at what the experts said. Third, we'll dive into the telemarketing trap. And finally, decoding the conversation. Section 1. Defining global issues. Just imagine a planet totally overwhelmed by severe global issues. We're talking about massive, undeniable crises here. Pollution, rapid deforestation, global warming, and illegal hunting. It's a pretty dramatic scene, right? A distressed Earth, totally surrounded by smokestacks and garbage. But this intense imagery actually sets the perfect stage for our language lesson. Facing all of that poses a really critical, almost existential question. What should we do and why? Well, the answer is strikingly simple. We absolutely must protect the Earth because, quite frankly, it's the only home we have. But listen, this isn't just an environmental statement. For our purposes today, this is the foundational idea that people are discussing, debating, and most importantly, reporting to one another in everyday conversation. Which brings us to Section 2, what the experts said. Take a chilling quote like this one from scientist James Hansen. He states very directly and in the present tense, global warming isn't a prediction, it is happening. Now, this is direct speech. These are the exact words coming right out of his mouth at that specific moment in time. He's emphasizing that this is a current, ongoing reality, not just some distant forecast. But here's where it gets interesting. When we tell someone else what Hansen said, we don't usually repeat it word for word like a parrot, right? Instead, we shift the tense backwards into the past. This creates what we call reported speech. So the present tense is happening transforms into he believed it was happening. This little mechanical shift, that's exactly how human beings naturally pass critical information along. Let's look at another one. Here we have a direct quote from Stephen Gilbobold. Time is running out to deal with climate change. Again, it's urgent and it's right there in the present tense. Is running out. But think about it. If you read this in the news and then tell your friend about it over coffee, you're going to use that exact same reported speech structure. You'd naturally say, Stephen Gilbobold said that time was running out to deal with climate change. And we can see this rule brilliantly illustrated again with the legendary Sir David Attenborough. His direct quote is a grim warning. Human beings have overrun the world. So when we shift this into reported speech, it becomes, Sir David Attenborough said that human beings had overrun the world. Have becomes had. Is becomes was. Just by stepping the verbs back one single step into the past, we instantly become the narrators of the world's most critical information. Now, there's a highly specific but super important mechanical rule to remember when you're speaking these sentences out loud. The word that is heavily stressed when it functions as a pronoun, like look at that. However, in these reported speech examples, like he said that time was running out, it's acting as a conjunction, connecting the clauses, so it actually loses that heavy stress in natural, fluid speech. It becomes a subtle little audio cue that tells the listener, hey, get ready, I'm about to tell you what someone else just said. Moving on to Section 3, the telemarketing trap. Okay, let's zoom way in and introduce a new vocabulary set for this scenario, starting with telemarketing. This is simply defined as the activity of selling a product over the phone. It's a completely mundane, everyday occurrence, right? Literally entirely disconnected from the grand scope of melting ice caps and global deforestation. However, as we all know from painful personal experience, the people making these calls aren't exactly always polite. They can be incredibly pushy, meaning they're so determined to succeed that they actually become quite rude. They'll try everything to persuade you, pushing hard to get you to do something you probably don't want to do.
And honestly, in many cases, what they're aggressively trying to persuade you to buy turns out to be a total hoax, a trick, or a harmless joke. Though, in the context of our next conversation, this trick isn't exactly harmless. It's fully designed to separate you from your hard-earned money.
Which takes us to section 4, decoding the conversation.
So let's look at how this plays out in real life, using those exact same grammar rules. First, we report that a man tried to persuade Faisal to open an account at a bank. The caller was incredibly pushy, which leads to step 2. We report that Faisal lost his patience and simply hung up. Good for him. Meanwhile, in step 3, Khaled fell into his own telemarketing trap. Watch the grammar here. We report that the man told Khaled that he had won a free trip to the Bahamas. But the catch was that Khaled would have to pay a huge amount of money to join a club just to go on the trip. A classic hoax, perfectly reported by shifting those tenses back.
And that brings us to the core realization of this entire explainer. It leaves us with a fascinating, kind of provocative thought to chew on. Our grammar naturally treats the warnings of the end of the world and the annoyance of a pushy telemarketer the exact same way. We shift the tenses back, we toss in the word that, and boom, we become the narrators of the event. If the very same conversational mechanics are used to handle both massive global crises and petty phone scams, just how adaptable and deeply powerful is the language we use every single day? It's absolute proof that the structure of our language is the ultimate, flexible tool for navigating literally every single aspect of the human experience. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.